Right, so you want to dive into this whole rent versus buy thing, huh?
This to be a pretty popular topic.
Yeah, it's one of those big life decisions everybody wrestles with at some point, right? And you sent over this really interesting episode of the Home Chat podcast.
Yeah, they had some really good points in there.
Definitely. So let's uh let's dig into those key takeaways together and see how they might apply to, well, your own situation.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So one thing that struck me right off the bat was how the podcast framed the whole rent or buy debate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about the money.
Right. It's way more nuanced than that.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where your lifestyle and your long-term goals kind of like intersect.
Yeah, it's less about finding the right answer for everyone and more about figuring out what the right fit is for you right here, right now.
I like that. What about you? What really stood out to you from the podcast?
Honestly, I was really impressed by how they tackled that whole myth about renting being like throwing money away.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic, isn't it?
Right. And it's so easy to get caught up in that line of thinking, but the podcast guests did a great job of explaining why that's not always the case.
Yeah, they really unpacked it, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Especially when you factor in things like flexibility, especially during certain stages of life.
Like when you're just starting out in your career or maybe you're not ready to settle down in one place just yet?
Exactly. For someone who values freedom and the ability to just pick up and move when they want renting can actually be a really smart choice.
Totally. But then there's that other side of the coin, right? That undeniable allure of owning your own place.
Oh, for sure. There's something really powerful about that.
It's like this dream a lot of us have.
Yeah.
So what resonated with you about the upsides of buying that they talked about?
Well, the thing that really stuck with me was the whole concept of building equity. It's more than just owning a physical space.
It's about building wealth over the long term.
Exactly. It's like having this piggy bank that grows over time.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't financial experts, can you break down exactly what equity is and how it all works?
Okay, so let's say you get a mortgage to buy a house.
Right.
Now, every payment you make on that mortgage has two parts. One part is going towards the interest you're paying on the loan, and the other part is chipping away at the principal.
And the principle is?
The original amount you borrowed. So as you pay down that principal, you're building equity in your home.
So the more you pay down, the more you own.
Exactly. Now, on top of that, there's something called market appreciation. This is where your property value increases because of things like a desirable location or a strong housing market.
So it's like your house is gaining value even if you're not actively paying down the principal.
Exactly. And then you've got what's called sweat equity.
Sweat equity. Okay, now that sounds interesting.
Yeah, so sweat equity comes into play when you make improvements to your property that actually increase its value.
So like renovations and stuff.
Exactly. Like if you renovate your kitchen or do some serious landscaping, that all adds to your home's value. That's so interesting. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, so you've got these different ways you can build equity when you own a home, which is one of the big advantages.
It's like you're really investing in your future.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. It's not just about, plunking down a chunk of change for a down payment. There's a lot more to it.
So true. So what did the experts on the podcast have to say about navigating that whole affordability aspect?
Well, they were really upfront about the anxieties a lot of people feel about it.
It can be daunting for sure.
Totally. And they emphasized that it's not just about the sticker price of the house.
Yeah. It's all those other costs that come with homeownership.
Exactly. Things like property taxes, homeowners insurance, and then all those maintenance costs that inevitably pop up.
It's like you're constantly on the lookout for what might break next.
Right. And the podcast guests actually said that unexpected repairs are one of the biggest things that can throw homeowners off budget.
I can totally see that happening.
Yeah, so they really stress the importance of factoring in all those hidden costs. They even gave us that helpful rule of thumb, right? About keeping your housing costs within a certain percentage of your income.
Yep. They recommended aiming for somewhere between 25% and 30% of your take-home pay.
Which is a good starting point, but like they said, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Exactly. It's about figuring out what feels comfortable and sustainable for you, given your own individual circumstances.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance between your dream home and your actual budget.
Right. You don't want to be house poor, as they say.
So we've talked about the potential costs.
Mm.
But what about the other side of things? What do the experts have to say about maximizing your chances of actually buying smartly, especially in today's market?
Well, they made a really interesting point about that. They said it's crucial to view buying a house not just as this personal decision, but also through the lens of the current housing market.
Because the market can be pretty unpredictable, right?
Oh, absolutely. It can fluctuate like crazy, even within the same city. So they were really adamant about doing your research, really understanding if it's currently a buyer's market or a seller's market.
Because timing is everything when it comes to
Right.
real estate.
Exactly. Like they were saying, are prices inflated right now? Are there deals to be had? Those are things you really need to know up front because they can have a huge impact on your investment down the line.
So it's not just about finding a house you love. It's about being strategic and informed about when and how you buy it.
Right. You don't want to let your emotions dictate one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make.
That's good advice. And speaking of advice, they also suggested reaching out to a local real estate agent,
Right. They were big on that.
which makes sense
Yeah.
because those online listings can only tell you so much.
Exactly. A good real estate agent who really knows your target neighborhood can be invaluable.
Like having a secret weapon in your back pocket.
Right. They can give you the inside scoop on things like recent comparable sales, neighborhood trends, even potential zoning changes that could affect property values in the future.
It's like having a crystal ball, almost.
Kind of.
Okay, but let's say someone's listening to all this and they realize, maybe they're not quite ready to jump into the housing market just yet. What advice did the experts have for them?
Well, they really emphasize the importance of patience and strategic planning.
It's like that saying, don't rush into anything.
Exactly. They said renting for a while longer might actually be the smartest move.
It gives you more time to save up for a bigger down payment or even improve your credit score if you need to.
Exactly. Plus, it lets you kind of ride out any volatility in the market.
I think that's something a lot of people forget. We get so caught up in the excitement of potentially owning a home that we don't always think about the benefits of taking our time.
It's true. It's easy to get ahead of ourselves. But like they said on the podcast, sometimes the best things are worth waiting for.
Did they have any specific examples of that, like people who had to be patient and wait for the right time?
Yeah, they actually shared a story about this couple who really wanted to buy their dream home, but they weren't quite financially ready.
Oh, no.
But instead of giving up, they used it as motivation. They came up with this whole savings plan, talked to a financial advisor.
They work out for them.
It did. Within a couple of years, they were able to buy their dream home.
See, patience pays off.
It really does.
That's such a good reminder for all of us who are maybe feeling a little impatient about achieving our goals.
It's all about playing the long game.
So true. And speaking of advice, remember that other piece of advice the podcast offered? The one about seeking professional guidance.
Right, yeah, that's huge.
It's like they said, sometimes you just got to call on the experts, right?
Yeah, right. And they weren't just talking about real estate agents either. They actually highlighted the value of talking to a financial advisor.
Oh, yeah, someone who can really look at your overall financial picture.
Exactly. They can help you figure out if you're really financially prepared to buy a home or if you'd be better off renting for a while longer and focusing on other financial goals.
It's like having a personal money coach in your corner.
Right.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the pros and cons of renting versus buying, the importance of affordability, the ins and outs of equity, the whole 9 yards.
We've been on quite a journey.
We have.
Okay.
But before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with one final kind of thought-provoking question.
Ooh, I like these. Lay it on me.
Okay, so imagine for a moment that money is no object. You have unlimited resources, and you can design your absolute dream living situation anywhere in the world.
Okay.
What does that look like?
Ooh, that's a big one.
Right? Are we talking a sprawling villa in Tuscany? A chic penthouse overlooking Central Park? A cozy cabin nestled in a redwood forest?
Or how about a beachfront bungalow in Bali?
Exactly. Let your imagination run wild. But here's the catch. Once you've painted that picture in your mind, ask yourself, does it lean more towards the flexibility of renting or the permanence of owning?
Ooh, that's good. Because for some people, that dream might involve traveling the world, experiencing new cultures, knowing they can pack up and go whenever they please.
Right. It's about embracing freedom and spontaneity.
Exactly. But then for others, that dream might be all about putting down roots, creating a space that truly reflects their personality, becoming part of a community.
It's about having that sense of stability and belonging.
Exactly. And I think tapping into those feelings can really help you figure out which path, renting or buying, aligns more closely with your deepest values and aspirations.
Because at the end of the day, it's not just about finding a place to live. It's about designing a life you love.
So true.
So as you continue to navigate this whole rent or buy decision, remember the insights we've unpacked from the home chat.
Weigh those pros and cons, crunch those numbers.
But most importantly, listen to your gut. Trust your instincts.
And don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it.
Exactly. Whether it's a financial advisor, a real estate agent, or even a friend who's been through this whole process talking it through can make all the difference.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. We hope you found this exploration helpful and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
And remember, the best decision is an informed decision. So keep asking those questions, keep gathering that knowledge, and keep moving forward on the path that feels right for you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time, happy house hunting, everyone.